Welcome to the Do More podcast, where we share strategies and tips for improving your life in every aspect. Here's your host, John Farling.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Today, I've got a friend that goes back, I think 4 or 5 years. We met at the Storage Rebellion Mastermind. I think that was 2020. And we've both been involved with that. And I know he's a dentist and also obviously invests in self-storage, but want to learn a little bit more about him. So, Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, John. Appreciate you having me on here. Sure. I've been a dentist for almost 20 years now. Started off in like 2004, 2005, and just working in the dental office. And I've always been kind of interested in real estate. And I remember, going back then, they used to have like the radio playing on the speakers while I was doing root canals, and there was this place near us that was like a real estate training school, Investors United. And they always ran these ads and they said, come Wednesday evenings, we'll teach everything you know about real estate, investing in real estate. I'm like, that sounds really cool. It was on the way home from work because I had like a 50-mile commute then. I was practicing kind of far from home. So I remember just like one day I'm like, all right, I'm doing it. So I stopped by their place one day after work and I signed up, and it was like a year-long course and met every Wednesday nights. And, I did that, and I just met some good people there and networked and just started, buying and flipping houses, fix and flip houses and buy and hold, the year after that. And just really, really enjoyed it. And I thought, you know what, man, if I could, make a living doing this would be a lot of fun. So, I just started getting really into it, and we started, I think at one point we were flipping, anywhere from, 20, 30 houses a year. We got up to that point. So it was, it was kind of a business. And at that point, this is back in like 2014, something like that, 2016. And I kind of paused at that point. I said, you know what, this is fun. I'm enjoying myself, but it's kind of a job, like I'm working almost as much as this that I am doing my dental job, but I might as well just do my root canals or something, So I kind of took a pause from that. I joined a couple masterminds. I joined the Life and Air Mastermind. And at that point, there was a guy there named Mike Moreno who went on to form another mastermind called the Storage Rebellion. And I kind of noticed like my buddies in my Life and Air Mastermind, including people we all know like Ken Holmes and some other people that we're mutual friends with, started ditching their residential portfolios and buying storage, and just talking about how awesome it was, and like, oh, this is so much better, just really seemed to be happy with it. And I thought, well, this is interesting. So ended up joining Mike Miner's group. I think it was 2020. Yeah. But just stepping back a little bit, what kind of pushed me to take action was when COVID hit, we had to close the dental office. So we closed the office for at least 3 months, and I'm sitting there thinking, man, like when I'm not in the dental chair, I'm not making money. So, to me, that's kind of an uncomfortable feeling. So I said, we need to have some other, maybe like additional income stream or another way to earn money where I don't have to physically be in a particular spot. So that's what kind of pushed me to go ahead and join Mike's mastermind. That's where I met you and met a bunch of other really cool people.
Yeah. I don't want to interrupt, but I want to pause you a little bit because I want to get into all that, but I also want to get back into kind of why you got into real estate. It sounds like we're about the same age. It sounds like we probably had somewhat, I wasn't a dentist, but somewhat of the same trajectory. I started getting into real estate in 2014. It sounds like you did too. So when you became a dentist to 2014, so it sounds like a decade. What happened that decade? Were you just focused on being a dentist? It sounds like at some point, maybe around 2014, you heard that commercial about getting in the investment in real estate. What kind of happened in that transition?
It was actually 2008 we started doing it. Okay. And it was right after the Great Recession, and stuff was, you could buy houses super cheap. You could buy houses on a credit card. That's amazing to think about then. But, houses were going for, $20,000, $30,000, it's way less than the cost of construction. So I had a cousin of mine who was really into real estate also. And he was buying a real estate tax, HOA tax liens in Las Vegas. So he was buying houses for like $2,000 to $4,000 at the HOA tax sale. And it was wiping out the mortgage. So he was, and I kind of watched him do that, and I think he ended up buying like 85 of them or something like that. And he's been just living in Panama ever since then,
Wow.
just living off the rental income. So, I watched that happen, and I said, you know what, I can do that too. So that's kind of was the impetus for getting into fix and flip and buy and hold back in 2008, 2009, because the opportunities were all over the place.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, actually, guy I just had on podcast before years ago to air. Sean Magner, his story was somewhat similar to where it's like we meet people in life that, and a lot of his episode was talking about people that he's met in life and people that he's surrounded with, and we become the average of those people that we're around. Right. So it sounds like your cousin had a huge impact there. You saw what he was doing, how it changed his life. So did you want to, I guess, because you're still a dentist now, right?
Yeah. I'm kind of like stepping it down to like 2 days a week now. I started off as back then doing 5 days a week. It's like a 9 to 10 hour day.
Yeah, for sure. So when you got in the real estate, was it something that you just wanted to supplement and kind of a retirement plan, or is it something where you're like, you know what, I do want to stop being a dentist at some point, and real estate will get me there? What was the main reason getting in the real estate?
It was mostly the financial independence piece of it. Like I just love the idea of being able to live anywhere and just being able to do what you want when you want, and it's tough to do that, especially as a dentist. Like it's hard to leave the office. Like if you want to take a vacation, like even my colleagues, very rarely do we go away, because you gotta leave your patients for a week. And it's just hard. So I just felt, I've been doing it for almost 20 years now. I just feel like it'd be nice to be able to, be financially independent, be able to do what you want, when you want, wherever you want, So I feel like real estate, especially storage, gives you the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
And actually, sometimes I'll talk to people like, oh, I should have bought storage back in the day, but we can get into it later. But, technology wasn't really there to remote manage. This is really a pretty recent thing within the last couple of years. Do we have the call centers and the software and the technology to be able to really run these things remotely? So this is more of a recent opportunity. I feel like.
Yep. No, 100% agree. Yeah, we do definitely want to get into that. So your first deal sounds like you've done, and I didn't know you did fix and flips. So you did, sounds like 20, 30 a year. What was the first one? What did that look like? How did you fund it? Were you nervous? Did you have people helping you?
You're talking about the houses, like the residential?
Yeah. Yep.
You're very the first one I did was a wholesale deal from someone at the Investors United. And just, man, did I make every mistake in the book? It was in a nice neighborhood in Baltimore City though. And it's one of those old townhouses where like the entire thing has to be renovated. You have to like gut it to the shell. And, for my first one, because I'm an overachiever, I did like the maximum rehab on this thing, right? We like gutted it to the shell. We actually had to dig the basement out because the basements were kind of short, So we were there with like dumpsters and guys with shovels, like digging out the basement. We had to like underpin it. So I had to do like structural supports, because it's just like this old brick shell, and you had to actually build a foundation under the brick after you dug the basement, so you could like make a full size, finished basement down there. So we did everything in the house, put a deck on the back, added bathrooms, and I think we might have even put addition on the back too. It was just crazy. But unfortunately I had, just shows you like the importance of partners. I picked the wrong partner. There was a guy there at Investors United who was looked like a mover and shaker and somebody who was really taking a lot of action. So everybody kind of gravitated to this guy and wanted to work with him. So he agreed to work with me on this one, but it turned out he was just siphoning money off the job and buying other things with it, right? So unfortunately, the job dragged on for like over a year, and we ended up selling it. We ended up losing money on that one, mostly because of essentially embezzlement from the partner. But a lot of lessons learned on that one, and just goes to show you my dedication to real estate. Even after that first experience, I'm like, let's do another. So I found different partners though, but we kept going, and we ended up building a decent.
That's awesome. Well, and you went super hard, super fast on your first one.
Yeah.
I mean, that's as far as a fix and flip, like it doesn't get much more difficult than that, unless you're just going to burn the thing down and completely rebuild it, which sounds like you did other than the shell. So what made you keep going even after that? It sounds like over a year you lost money. What made you keep going?
It's mostly because I knew it had potential, and I knew plenty of people who were doing it and doing fine. I just needed to surround myself with those people, So I think at that point I was going to like every RIA meeting in the state almost. It was like every night I was going to a RIA meeting, meeting people, just building my network, lenders, agents, other potential partners and stuff, and I ended up meeting other people I could work with who were honest and decent people. So. I just can't stress enough, when people ask about, how to get into the business or what to do next. It's the networking. You and I know this is a people business, right? So it's just surrounding yourself with the people who might have the different resources you might not have, like time or money or skills or whatever, and just putting something together, and off to the races. So, but also I just kind of enjoyed it. I don't know. I just love the, taking something and refreshing it, rebuilding and putting it back out there as nice and new, So, kind of taking that over through the storage part too. I kind of gravitate to the value add deals and stuff where you have to put a lot of work into. So, but it's been fun.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. Network is, and it's a common theme that comes up is your network, and how strong your network is how strong your business is, and what you're going to do and how long you're going to do it. I waited because I got in real estate investing in 2014. I did one rental a year and did one fix and flip. So that was 5 years, and didn't network. Like I listened to podcasts, read books, but didn't network. So I could only realistically could I've done more probably, but if you have people around you and you're networking and you see what other people are doing, it's a cheat code, right? Just get you there faster.
Yeah.
So sounds like you did fix and flip for about 10 years, right?
Yeah. I guess
any rentals in there or all fix and flip?
No, it was, we built up a small rental portfolio. And we did just fixing and flipping and buying and holding as it seemed appropriate. Right. And then eventually we ended up going separate ways with my partner there. And I took like a year, what the advice from my mastermind, like, look, you've been working so hard on this rehab business, and it's become like a little, it's like you said, it's got a little too much. So they recommended I take like a year off and just do nothing and just kind of sit and think for a while, and that's what I did. And that's a hard thing to do when you're somebody who likes to do things and take action. It's hard to sit and do nothing. And I remember this is a quote from another group that I'm in, Front Row Dads, which I highly recommend. Stillness is a move. Was the takeaway from our most recent meeting. And it's like, when you think about it, like if you're in a place where maybe you feel like you've lost your way or things may be a little bit hectic, like if you take a break, don't feel guilty to take that break and just be quiet for a while, because that's actually a move. So
that's really good. Yeah, because most of us think we should probably take action and massive action, right? And maybe we'll overturn it with that. But no, that's awesome. I've never heard that before.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was it. I took a year and did nothing, which was extremely hard for me to do. Yeah, especially like, and the thing that I'm kind of working through this myself, but we're all on social media, we're on Facebook, we all have friends who are doing stuff, and you're watching people like really do things and take a lot of action and build their business, and it's hard to just sit there and be like, you know what, I'm going to do nothing this year, or I'm going to do nothing for the next 6 months. Right. It's hard to do. Yep. But we did it. I did it for like a year, and I just had time to think and time to reprocess and stuff. And it's when I kind of started looking more towards like commercial real estate, and at that point I was like, okay, shit, is it multifamily? Is it what is it? So I'm just kind of looking for the next thing. And I was actually interested with as early as 2018, we started to make offers on storage. We hadn't joined the storage rebellion yet, but we were just kind of like trying to figure it out on our own and just throwing offers out there. And everything that I had offered, I should have just bought. Right? Looking back on it, like that was a deal at the ask price. But yeah, it wasn't until I really joined the mastermind in 2020 that things really started to happen for me.
Yeah. Okay. So did you find storage through Mike Wagner through Life and Air or through another channel?
It's pretty much through Wagner. It's it's just the guys, just watching what the other guys are doing. Yeah.
Okay. So that was 18 when you started looking at deals. Where were you looking at storage deals initially?
There was actually some stuff in Maryland, believe it or not, that showed up. I was kind of trying to, I hadn't really learned the whole remote management thing yet. So I was kind of looking close to me, like, Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, just trying to find something there. I invested in a bunch of Ken Holmes's deals as a passive investor between 2018 2019. So I was in like almost all of this stuff, just kind of watching how that was going, and just kind of learning, from him a little bit. And then it was, right in the middle of 2020 when I was sitting at home, like, okay, I gotta do something. That's when I'm like, all right, I'm signing up for this group. So
yeah, that's awesome. So it sounds like, yeah, you started investing passively in storage. It's kind of proof of concept. It's like, okay, let's see if this thing works. And obviously it worked on your end and the owner's end as well. So then you started looking for your first deals. You joined Mastermind, started looking for your deals. How did that go? What did that look like in 2020?
Well, what I did, when you're first starting out, it can seem really hard to find a deal, because you haven't developed your networks yet and you haven't really underwritten a lot of stuff. And, everything you're looking at is what everybody else is looking at, so you don't really have those private, relationships where people are going to send you stuff personally. So it was tough at first. It felt, kind of overwhelming. Like, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to find a deal? All these other people are finding deals. Why can't I find a deal? So what I did,
while you're working full time too.
Yeah. I was still doing 4 days a week then. But what I did to kind of prepare myself is I just underwrote everything, right? I just practice underwriting, practice using the spreadsheets, to the point where I knew what I was after and I could do it quickly so that when something came my way, I could take action like immediately. So there was a guy in our group posted a deal on the Storage Rebellion network. And I had been underwriting, it was a smaller deal, it was like 9,000 square feet in Clinton, South Carolina. And I had been underwriting these smaller deals like for months, right? So I knew, like, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, okay, I know I can do something with this one. I had an extra acre attached to it. It was 30% occupied or whatever, had low rents. I'm like, I know I can do this. So I within like 45 minutes, I had the thing. I reached out and said, all right, I want this one, it's just the speed was there because I'd been practicing. Yeah. So I was able to basically, very first was a wholesale deal from somebody else in our network, So it was the first deal. And I called a good friend of mine, Steve Kavanaugh. I said, hey man, let's take this one down. And he said, sure. So we put under contract and flew down there, looked at it. Interestingly enough, like, would I buy the same one today? I don't know if I would, because I guess, we kind of move on, and because this one was a heavy lift, it was a 9,000 square foot, completely neglected. The family inherited from, the dad, and they didn't want anything to do with it. Just grass driveways, it had an extra acre, but it was fully forested, in the middle of, like, behind another business off of a road in the small town of Clinton. Right. So we buy this thing, and immediately we start, I kind of call it the 3-ring circus, where it's kind of like, you have to fix the management, you have to, like, rehab the property, and also maybe you want to build something too. So it's like you have to manage all those things all at the same time. So that's it. We just bought this thing. We started trying to turn around the management. Luckily, I only had one to work on, so I could put a lot of time into it, and it took a lot of time, to fix everything up, and just trying to find contractors to repair the thing. It was all drywall on the inside and holes in it, so we had to tear the drywall out, put new metal sheeting in there. Had no internet, so we had to figure out how to install internet, in the middle of a field.
Why? And I want to keep diving into this deal. Yeah. I'm going to interrupt really quick. I've got a facility that has drywall interior too, block wall outside, drywall inside. Why did you guys decide to rip all the drywall out?
Well, it was moldy, and also it had holes in it, and it just didn't. I mean, at that time, it was a combination of drywall and that what was the name of that board? That's like particle board. I forget what it's called.
Yeah,
there's a name for it. But,
I know what you're talking about.
So it had like the particle board dividers, and it had the drywall. And at the time, being inexperienced, I'm like, oh, I got to make this thing look like, a Class A. I got to rip everything out, put steel in. But no, I mean, people didn't mind renting. They minded. We did get complaints on the ones that we ended up not doing. People don't like the drywall, at least where we're at. Right. But they're okay with the wood dividers. So at the time, I was thinking I had to replace everything, but you don't. You're kind of surprised what people are willing to rent. It just depends on the market. As long as it's looks okay and is clean, they're, most people are okay renting that thing. So, but the drywall we had to get rid of because it just looked awful and it had holes in it. And it was just one sheet, and it just wasn't secure at all. Because we did have problems with people stealing stuff. And, the biggest problem we have with theft and storage is always like your tenants. Isn't someone like breaking in. It's like people who rent units aren't always the most honest people either, so you have to keep it secure from the other tenants. But so we decided, we spent somewhere $30,000 at the time, with all the steel and changing out the units. Luckily the doors were in good shape. But resealing the roofs, you name it, we had to do it to that place. So,
wow. So I want to hit on something that you talked a little bit about, was you practiced underwriting, you underwrote everything. And it's funny because anybody that I talk to that's looking to get into any type of real estate investing or buying a business or whatever, it's like, I always ask them, okay, how long have you been looking and how many deals have you underwrote? They're like, well, I've been looking for 6 months, a year. And then I ask them how many deals they've underwritten. They're like, oh, 1 or 2. I'm like, what are you doing? You're never going to find a deal because you don't know what a deal is.
Right.
So practice underwriting to me is obviously you got to find deals, right? But like you said, you're not going to know what a deal is until you have practice underwriting and realize what a deal is not. And everyone's deal box is different, right? What works for you now, and you just said it, what works for you now probably didn't work for you. You couldn't buy that same facility today that you bought 4 years ago, right? So your buy box changes, and what may work for you may not work for me. So it's a really good point. You just have to practice underwriting. That first deal, obviously, so you're in Maryland. This is, I think you said South Carolina. Obviously plane right away. What, I guess, limitations, beliefs did you have? Were you scared about investing out of state? What did that look like for you?
Oh yeah. I think that's pretty much, I've seen it with other people too, who first come into the storage rebellion. They just start, the question is, can I really run these, out of state? Even some of the banks that we talk to now, like, oh, you don't live less than half an hour from the facility. How are you going to run it? It's a leap of faith to think you can buy an asset, multiple states away and run it and be perfectly okay. But people do it all the time. And, storage, we have the systems in place to do that now, but with multifamily, you just have to have good people helping you, run it. But, it was a leap of faith for me even to say, can I run this thing? And there was another guy in our group who was doing a lot of wholesaling at the time, presented a climate control facility in, I think it was West Virginia. And, definitely a deal, but I was like, I didn't want to touch it because it was like an enclosed building. It was like a building converted into climate. I'm like, how am I supposed to run that? That's too complicated. I can't run that remotely, but yes, you can. It's just having faith in the systems. And when you don't have experience with it, it's hard to be like, oh yeah, this is going to work. My boots is going to, take care of things, and you're going to have, decent call center and stuff like that. But it's at some point, it's like you can underwrite, to death, but you just have to take that leap of faith, when you're looking at a deal and you have to lease it up, do you know for sure you can lease it up? You never know for sure if you can lease it up. You just have to, do the best you can and then take that leap. So
I want to get into all that stuff too, and I'm writing notes down so I don't forget. So we'll go back to the beginning of the deal. You brought in a partner. Why'd you bring in a partner? What did that structure look like, if you don't mind? And if you don't want to share numbers, don't share numbers. But how did that look, and why did you bring someone on? Why didn't you do it yourself?
Yeah, for me, it's like my bandwidth was limited, because I'm still working 4 days a week. And, when the thing that's kind of tough for me is when you're in a dental office, it's like there are no breaks. Like I can't make phone calls. I can't do anything. Right. So it's like from 8 to like 5:30, I'm in a dental chair. Everything has to be put aside. So kind of limited with time and mental bandwidth too, So I personally like working with partners because it just takes a lot of load off of me and helps me move further faster. And enables things to happen that would otherwise never happen or be difficult for me to do. Because we have family too. You have kids, you have wife, you have home responsibilities, and you can't just like go right from work to your second job. You have other things to do too, and you do have to sleep. So I just like bringing a partner because Kavanaugh is a good friend of mine. Has lots of resources with his time and his knowledge and money too. So he brought some of the down payment. We actually. One of our real estate mentors gave us the funding for the deal, like 100% finance the deal. Not 100%. It was like 80% or something. We had to bring a down payment, but finance most of the deal for us. Actually, he did 100% finance. It was the deal was 170,000 to buy, and we needed about 50 to 80,000. Yeah, I know, 50 to 80,000 and fix up, to get it working. So he gave us a loan for like 200,000, which covered closing costs and some of the fix up, and then we each put money in to do the rest of the, probably split it 50-50 to do the rest of the fix up. But it was good. I just like having somebody on my team that can bounce ideas off of, and help with like the admin and management stuff.
Sure.
So
that makes sense. So how'd you set up your management day one? And on top of that, who took control with basically setting that up? And then who took control of the contractors doing all the CapEx work?
I think I did most of it. I mean, at the time it was still 2020 and we were still kind of like not really working on a full schedule. We're kind of in this weird zone with COVID stuff. So I did have a little extra bandwidth. So I took on the management, asset management, and also kind of the contractor, managing the contractors and stuff. Yeah. And that was like the fall of 2020. That was pretty intense trying to get the place fixed up and turn around. But once we did it, I mean, this is also interesting too. Occupancies back then during COVID for storage were, I think, a little elevated, actually a lot elevated, because we leased up to like almost 100% within a couple of months. Within 6 months, we were full. Yeah, I don't think that would happen today as quickly, but once we saw that, we're like, oh, this is great. This works. We can start thinking about expanding it. So this is how we're going like 2021. Like, all right, let's do this. Let's expand the place. Let's use that extra acre. So we got a SBA loan from Bank 5.9 to do the expansion. We essentially refinanced it, paid off the private lender, and took out I think it was like $1 million loan to build the other. And ended up being like 20,000 square feet of storage. 2 drive-up buildings and a climate building. So that was it. That was 2022. We just did the development. And we have an interesting thing in between, in order to increase our cash flow so that we could, handle the mortgage payments during the lease up. We ended up doing box bills, which are the portable storage units you can get. Boxwell, I think .co or something like that. We bought like 24 box wells, and we kind of lined the fence line with the box well so we can continue to lease up and increase our revenue while we're waiting for the storage units to be built. So that was cool. That worked great. They leased up, no problem. And then I think we finished construction kind of the beginning of, put the buildings like online at the beginning of 2023. And now we're in the midst of leasing them up now. I think we're about 60% occupied. So, awesome. Yeah. So that's it's just, cool. Another year or two, hopefully we'll get there.
Yeah. So what'd your management look like when you started, and how's that one? And we'll dive into other stuff too. But I want to focus
management.
On
sure.
How did it look like then? How's it look now?
Well, that's a whole story in and of itself. Since that first deal in 2020, we've gone on to buy, with the other different partners and different business relationships, we've gone to buy another like 13 of these things. We sold some too. We sold 4 last year to kind of take some chips off the table. So I think we own like 8 or 9 right now. But as we're adding to our portfolio, and I wanted to do that because, it's the efficiencies of scale. When you have a bunch of units, now you can, start putting, third-party management in place. You can start doing cool things with call centers. And so I at the time, I was using a third-party management service, because, again, I wanted to offload as much responsibility as possible because I was still kind of limited bandwidth. I was working like 3 days a week at that time. And I'm like, all right, I want somebody to take over operations. I don't want to think about it. I want it to be run well. And we had a group that, seemed to be okay. So we went ahead and gave all our properties over to this group.
How early? So what'd you do before that, and how early? What time frame did you switch over?
I switched over pretty quickly. I'm trying to remember like how many I had before I hired a third party manager. I think we might have had, I might have only had 2 or 3 before I went to third party. And started.
So what'd you do before? You weren't taking the phone calls.
No. We had called. Well, there was a software company, Easy Storage Solutions. They have their own in-house call center. Yep. So we just hired Easy Storage Call Center, And at the time, there were some issues with the call center. wasn't great, so we had to start looking elsewhere.
Yep.
But we had the boots on the ground guy, we had the call center, and it was just me, handling any issues that came through the call center. So after 2 or 3 or 4 of those, it starts to get overwhelming.
Yep.
And then we needed to move quick to third party management.
Sure.
But so we hired a third party manager. We kept buying properties, and we realized quite quickly that just talking with other people in their group, third party management may not be all that the problem with third party management is they have a lot of other properties that they're worried about. They might be managing 100 properties or 200 properties.
Yep.
So they can't really spend all their time on just yours, and that you have meetings where they even say then, like, look, we got 100 other properties to manage. We really can't put as much more time into this one. I'm like, all right, I'm kind of done here. We need to worry about our own assets, because to them you're just one of 100 properties, but to you it's like a multi-million-dollar asset.
Yep.
So we went ahead and started bringing things in house. So we started hiring our own call center and our own managers that we could control and with the policies and the training and stuff. So that's where we're at now. As of like August of last year, we switched to our own kind of in-house management team. So that's
nice
so far.
That's awesome. So yeah, I think we all not all, but a lot of us, especially in Wagner's group, started with the remote management with ESS, Easy Source Solutions, the software in the call center. Call center went to garbage 2021 because COVID happened and people stopped working on site, and everyone found out, I can just hire this cheap call center. So they stopped taking phone calls. So we all found a different solution. What was your experience with third-party management? What did they do? And I guess what was I know you explained a little bit of it, but there had to have been like a final straw where you're like, this is it. We're going to bring this in-house. But yeah, first of all, what all did they do? And then I guess what happened to make you decide to pull it in-house?
Yeah. I mean, it looked good. The thing I really liked about them is they would onboard for you. So you would buy a new property and they would send somebody out there to like put the gate control system in, change the signage, you do everything, get the boots trained. I mean, it was like, you didn't have to go out there. Like you just remote sign, you close your property, and they would do everything else for the onboarding, which is awesome. Because for me, it's like I said, it's hard for me to get out of work to go make a trip to go do that stuff. So that was essential for me. And then they had their own call center, and they had like regional managers, and they had on-site guys that would go visit the property every quarter. And then they had the boots guys that they would hire and train, and it was like it was soup to nuts, done for you. So we thought, this is great. They're going to handle everything for us, and you don't have to worry about it. Just have monthly meetings and look at reports, and that's it. But we started to notice that just things weren't. The thing that really bugged me was the customer service was not great with the tenants. Because the tenant would have a problem, they would call, and then they wouldn't be able to get a resolution. They have to submit a ticket because the call center couldn't really resolve anything. They were kind of limited to what they could do. So they'd submit a ticket, and a ticket would go to some other mailbox, and then at the time, I don't know if it changed, might have changed. Maybe they've evolved since then, but it would either sit there or it wouldn't get. It would take 2 to 4 days to resolve a tenant issue, if it ever got resolved. And we're talking somebody's there with like a lock they can't get into, or they try to rent a unit, has stuff in it, and they need to get another unit, stuff like that. And we just got like a sea of 1-star reviews, and we noticed that people were moving in and moving out real quick, because they just couldn't get. The problem with remote management, when you buy a facility that used to have a manager on site and then you get rid of that manager and run it remotely, the customer service isn't the same. It's just not the same as having somebody you can knock on the door and resolve something, or some friendly face there. So it's for me, for remote management, customer service must be 100%, must be first class. You have to be able to resolve issues quickly on the phone immediately. Otherwise they'll just go somewhere else where they can get better service. So that's what was happening. They were moving out. They were, our occupancies weren't growing as quickly as they needed to be. I was with a certain software called Store Edge, a different software than the Easy Storage, the same company that owns the two. You can actually record your incoming calls. So I had our calls being recorded. So I was sitting there listening to the interactions with the tenants, and it was driving me crazy. So, and then we had meetings about it, and we talked about it, and it didn't really seem to get much resolution. And we had a couple of properties that just really underperformed. And it's, we just can't do this anymore. And then we had a situation where we had a property we had sold and went under contract, it was supposed to close in like a month and a half later. And they're just like, oh, it's sold. We don't have to run this thing anymore. And the property went to crap during the contract period. And the buyer got super pissed. We had to give him an extra $10,000 at closing because of the place was a mess. So after that, I'm like, all right, I need to take this stuff in house. So then we started looking towards, who can we hire? Who can we work with? We started hiring VAs, and luckily we found somebody who was starting their own management company, they said, look, you go ahead and start your own thing. We'll be your first clients. And they wanted to keep it small, and they're just running our stuff now. So that's what we're doing right now.
Nice. So it's same type of setup where you're still remote. You don't have people on site,
Right.
other than boots on the ground that's checking in and out. But you've got a better call center. And do they have like a regional manager? How does their structure work?
Not really. It's just boots. We have a VA who handles like collections and handles like it's a kind of an unusual VA. The guy's great, phenomenal. Like worked in corporate and stuff like that, and just so happens he lives in Mexico. But he used to own like 7 Cinnabons or something like that. So kind of an unusual find. But he's happy to help us, run our stuff. So he runs our collections, and he runs the boots guys, and he runs like the CapEx and does a great job with that stuff. Put spreadsheets together with KPIs and stuff like that for us. So we pay him as kind of like a virtual assistant for running like the admin and back end. And then we have the person who started her own management company that we hired, who's just answering calls, but she's kind of the manager and the call center, so she can handle anything.
Yeah.
When the call comes in, she can handle anything. She's the manager. So there's none of this, passing the ticket or, and then tenants get to talk to the same person every time they call. So she knows everybody and what the issues are. And then she has other people helping answer calls for us also. So we have a couple of people in the call center, and then we have the VA, and then we also have all the boots that we're lucky. We have all of the boots that we have. We like, they're real dedicated, and, and the thing with the boots, like I try not to micromanage them. Like for the boots job, I feel like a lot of the benefits of being a boots guy is, you're free to come and go and get your job done when you want. I like to let them do, within reason, problem solve the way they see fit, as long as they know what they're doing and they're good people. But they seem to enjoy that. Like they can come to me with, say, hey, I got this issue and I did this, and like, great, however you think is best, go ahead and solve that, however you feel is the best way to do that. So it's like the freedom and the extra money. It's, a lot of our boots are semi-retired or retired. And this is a great, job for them to do to kind of supplement their retirement income. Because some guys that are young and they just like, just doing this type of work. So it's worked out so far.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell us about your management. Obviously, you've scaled really quickly here in the past 4 years. It sounds like you had 13, sold off a few.
Yeah.
What's your buy box, just in general? What are you looking for now?
We're kind of looking for. I've kind of switched. I'm really interested in cash flow now over because we have a bunch of properties that we're in the middle of either doing a conversion or doing a build, and a lot of stuff we've bought. It's like a year or two before it starts to cash flow because it's such a heavy lift. We got to do the repair, do the CapEx, turn the management around. So what me and my partner are looking for now is just stuff that's kind of stabilized and cash flowing now. We kind of want to build up our cash flow. Like I want to kind of be able to say, all right, I'm financial independent. I can stop the dental job if I want, or it might just keep working. Who knows? But if so we currently have a deal under contract where it cash flows from day one. There isn't a whole lot of CapEx needed. There's not a heavy lift. It's just already remote managed and ready to go. So we like to do a couple more of those. Just add stabilized assets to portfolio just to increase our cash flow at this point. And then of course we'll still look for the ones that maybe need some fix up, but I think at this point, I want to kind of build on the cash flow on the portfolio and not the stuff that I want, I'm not get paid on for like years from now,
Yeah. So the ones that you bought previous were heavier lifts, more equity upside, whether you refinance or sell. Mm-hmm. So more of an equity boom and not really cash flowing as much. Was that by design, or was that just finding those deals and you're like, yeah, this is a deal, let's take it down?
Honestly, pretty much that's what we we took what we can get at that point,
Yeah.
And we weren't at that point, we didn't have a ton, so we weren't afraid of the heavy lifts, Yep. But now we're at the point where, okay, we're in the middle of stuff, and there's only so much that I want to, put in my plate at one time. So,
yep. What kind of markets? What kind of markets are you looking at? And then when you're doing, this is something that you talked about earlier, I want to touch on. What are you looking at in the market? So what kind of markets are you looking at? And then what are you looking at in the market when you're looking at storage facilities?
So before, and that's changed too. Before it was like I would buy anything, anything I could find, we know it would most likely lease up, and everyone was trying to get storage from everywhere. So we pretty much bought anywhere, as long as it seemed like a safe market and there was low crime, and it seemed like a decent place where there was customers or a customer base. So now I'm a little more selective. Like I'm not looking in the rural areas as much, or in the super tertiary markets. I'm looking more into secondary markets. I want to see a decent population. I want to see some growth too, because now I'm not as certain as I used to be that we're going to be able. If I have a place that's 30% occupied, I'm not as certain we're going to be able to lease that place up as I used to be. And I'm like, okay, look, there has to be a reason people need storage in this market. Are they moving into the market? Is the population growing? Or there's new development? Is there apartments? Is there something there that I can tap into to kind of give us some headwind? I think that the theme now is I want a little bit of headwind now. I want to be able to go in a market that I know is growing, or because there's a potential for growth. And I don't want to gamble with going in a space and then hoping that I can lease up. So
it's a good plan. And I'm guilty of doing what you've been doing too. Is just, it's a deal. It's for me, I'm looking for cash flow, and if it's cash flowing, I'm fine with it. But I have not looked at towns. I'm in Ohio. I'm in the Midwest. Like towns other than where I live, Columbus, Ohio, everything else is not growing. It's the same. Yeah. It's been the same for the past 80 years. Yeah. Probably not going to change. Right. But I have not started looking at growing population. So how are you finding those statistics to find what areas are growing?
I'm looking at the Marcus and Millichap puts out a report. I look at a lot of multifamily stuff. They do a multifamily report. They kind of show the regions where there's growth and where people are moving to. There's something like I've heard this several times in storage circles. I haven't accessed it myself, but the U-Haul report that kind of shows where the U-Haul trucks are going. That sounds very interesting to look at. Where the U-Haul trucks are going, where people are going to need storage, right? So. But that's pretty much, just kind of studying demographic trends, kind of seeing where big employers are moving into. I just recently read that Tesla leased a huge warehouse. I think it was a Texas town. So that's interesting town to look at. But, just stuff like that, just try to get in front of where people are going and where they want to go, and kind of see, because things go in cycles, population movements go in cycles. And as places become very expensive or too expensive for people to live, they're going to search out other desirable places where cost of living is less, and that's where the population is going to want to migrate to. So I think a lot of all this remote work stuff has made people more open to moving, other places. So that's an interesting dynamic to look at. But it's just doing some homework and just studying what's happening, and just kind of taking bets on where you think people are going to want to be.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, it's before we start to wrap up here, you've obviously, 4 short years, you've grown tremendously. It's awesome to watch you grow. And obviously, the network that we've been around, and you've come to an LFG event, like bouncing ideas off each other, watching other people grow, taking ideas from other people is definitely helpful. What do you, what's next for you?
Right now, I took a leap of, well, not really a leap of faith, but people always, they're always like, so Mike, when are you going to quit? Right. It's like, I don't know. I think going down from 3 days to 2 days a week at the dental was a big leap for me. I want to focus on, we've done a lot of syndication over the last year. We've brought on investors, and, and that's been fun. I enjoy, syndicating deals. But I think for me, it's just, this year we'd like to buy a couple more, stabilized cash flowing assets, even if it's like, look at stuff that's listed and talk to brokers and make offers, and just find deals that we want to try to get investors a good return, but also be able to, provide cash flow for ourselves as well, so that we can continue to grow. So I think cash flow is the bottom line for us this year. We're just going to look for cash flow.
That's awesome. So kind of a typical, or I guess my typical podcast question, what are you better at than anybody else in the world?
I think there's a lot of really smart people out there. I don't think I'm better at any, I know what I really enjoy, and things that I really enjoy, I tend to want to learn about and get good at. For me, it's underwriting deals and putting deals together. The deal structure, the underwriting of the deal, the projections and stuff like that. That's the thing that I really enjoy. Interestingly, with my partners set up, I always try to find partners who are good at acquisitions, because for whatever reason, going out there and snooping out the deal is not really something I enjoy doing as much. I enjoy, the underwriting, the deal structure, talking to investors, putting deals together, the financing, communicating with the banks, all that stuff, the asset management. So with my partner relationships, they're usually the ones who are out there, finding the deals and then bring them to the table. So
that's smart. I mean, you're taking your, you say you don't have like a superpower or something that you're better at, but obviously you do, right? You underwrite deals, you can do projections. There's very few people that can do that. So obviously that's a superpower. But you're smart in working with others that can find deals. So that's smart. You can't both be great at finding deals, right? Or both great at, you can't be great at the same things, because you're just not going to mesh and you're going to fight over things. So that's awesome, man. So anything else you want to leave us with before you tell us where people can find you?
No, I mean, I'm trying to think of, the super smart thing to end with. Not really. I think one of the things that there's a good book out there called Ego is the Enemy. I find, just with the whole social media culture and stuff, and everyone's out there and like, oh, look at all these deals I got this year, all these deals I got that year. And like for me, that it doesn't really matter. Like, what do you need to do? Like, focus on your own stuff, focus on your life and your resources and your situation, and just do what's best for you. And don't worry about what everyone else is doing, And it's been something, it's a learning process for me. It's like checking your ego out the door, and just don't try to do these big deals because you think it makes you look cool or whatever. Just do the things that are appropriate for your situation. Look at your life and don't overcomplicate things. Try to keep things simple and make sure you have room for the important stuff, So.
Man, that's so powerful. I'm glad I asked you to say something else, because that's it's funny. And I've been talking to a few guys about this, and I joined a new mastermind that I've talked about, but it's funny because everyone's like, how many units do you have?
Right.
How many doors do you have? How many square feet do you have? Oh, I just raised $40 million, or I've got $120 million worth of real estate.
Yeah.
What does all that mean? How much money are you really making? How much freedom do you have?
Right.
Like, there's so much that's not talked about, but it's the ego thing. That's how many doors, how many units, how many square feet. None of that stuff matters, right? You could have $100 million worth of real estate, but it's only worth $98 million. It's pointless, right? And my guess is a lot of people are in that boat, especially now that values have dropped. So no, that's an awesome point, man. That's
by the way, awesome. And that's a universal human nature thing too. Like when we go to dental conferences, it's like, how many root canals do you do? How many employees do you have? How many offices do you have? It's like everybody's looking, for elsewhere to make themselves feel better. Like how do I measure up to what other people are doing? And it doesn't matter. Just how's your quality of life? What's your relationship with your wife and kids? Are you able to keep healthy and take time off and enjoy yourself? That's all that matters.
That's all that matters, man. That's awesome. That's a great place to end too. That was awesome, man. Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
They can. I'll just throw out. They can reach me by throw out my email. It's my last name's MORENO M2013 @gmail.com. That's my email for when I schedule a call. Also, we have our websites, mystorageinvestments.com. That's where we have kind of shows our portfolio and what our current offerings are in case you want to see what we're up to. And that's about it. I'm welcome if anyone wants to reach out. I'm welcome to talk. I love talking storage, and if anyone needs help with anything, just reach out.
And send Mike some deals too.
Yeah. Let's look at some deals.
Awesome, man. Well, again, appreciate you coming on, and we'll see you guys next time.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks for following, subscribing, and listening to this episode of the Do More podcast hosted by John Farling. To learn more or ask questions, go to l4investing.com.